World leaders are calling for de-escalation as tensions reach unprecedented levels between Israel and Iran. Israel's war cabinet is meeting today. So is the UN Security Council in response to Iran's attempted drone strikes overnight. Israel says more than 300 drones were shot down. The U.S. is also meeting with G7 nations to work toward preventing Israel's war with Hamas from spreading. And on that point, the humanitarian crisis in Gaza continues to grow. Our next guest visited Gaza twice during this war. Dr. David Hasan is a professor of neurosurgery at Duke University. We last spoke with him in February after his first visit to Gaza, and today he joins us once again to tell us about his second trip to the region. We've reached him today in Durham, North Carolina. Dr. Hasan, thank you so much for making time for us.
Thank you, Natasha.
Dr. Hasan, I really want to get into what you've seen in Gaza, what it's like to work there, but I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, when you see the events of what took place overnight with this escalation between Iran and Israel's conflict, what's going through your mind?
Natasha, I can now share with you my personal view about this. I am very, very glad that no one was injured, and everybody is, I contacted some of my friends in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, and it was kind of a terrible night for them. But I'm, again, glad that no one got injured or major problems happened from that, because that would lead to major escalation in the area and draw more countries into a bigger conflict. And this will distract away from what's going on in Gaza. Okay. I do appreciate all the leaders in the world to kind of press on both Israel and somehow pressure Iran not to escalate this anymore.
Let's see what happens on that front. We'll continue to monitor that. But you rightly said we cannot afford to not pay attention to what's going on in Gaza. So let's you and I talk about that now. Tell me about this latest visit to Gaza and what you were doing there.
So, Natasha, this time is a continuation, if you will, for what I did and continue to do from my first trip. After I came back, I was working with different NGOs and senators here in the United States to kind of help bring this to light and maybe draft some small steps, if you will, to kind of help humanitarian aid in Gaza. So this time I was able, with the help of several companies, including Medtronic, which is a major multi-billion-dollar company, to secure large donations to take with me to Gaza. And we also took quite a bit, over a ton of baby food. That's personal. I took baby food and diapers to the needy kids in Gaza.
And so, how do you even get into Gaza? Like, walk me through this experience. Do you fly into Egypt and try to get through the Rafah border crossing? How do you get through?
So this time, it's a complex. It's actually much better than the first time when I went in back in December, Natasha. It's becoming a little bit more efficient. So I did get the green light around Wednesday, and I bought the ticket Thursday, and I flew to Cairo on Saturday. But I managed to get all the donations from Medtronic, which is a very large donation, over $500,000. And for me, I was very worried about the Egyptian in Cairo embassy confiscating that. So I was able to contact Senator Elizabeth Warren, Congressman McGovern, and the American Embassy in Egypt and USAID, who helped a lot to allow me to enter Cairo with these aids. Otherwise, it would be a potential problem because they will take that. So we arrived Cairo and we assembled in one of the hotels. And the next morning, we took about 8 buses with us. There was about 20 people, but the buses were full of bags and boxes of aid, medications needed, devices, and food, especially for babies. And it took us about 6 hours. We had to go through 11 checkpoints, and then we reached Rafah and crossed the Egyptian and then the Palestinian side of Rafah.
6 border crossings before you even got to Rafah?
11.
11. Oh my goodness. Okay. So you get through and you get into Gaza, then what happens?
That's at the Palestinian side. We have people from the hospital are meeting us, and they were able to help us load the bags, and we went as a full convoy to the hospital. The hospital is not far away from the crossing. It's approximately about 15 minutes drive.
And tell me about what you see at the hospital.
So in the way, first of all, before we got the Rafah crossing, I still saw the same thing I saw back in December, Natasha, which is thousands of trucks on the Egyptian sides waiting to enter Gaza. There's still the bottleneck of the aid is unable to enter Gaza. So that's the first thing I noticed, hasn't changed at all. The second thing, as I entered Gaza, there was more destruction compared to what I saw. I would say probably more than 60–70% at this point, destructions in Rafah. More refugee camps, and now there's approximately 1.5 million. When I went in December, we were thinking more like 700,000, so almost double. The number of refugees in the hospital have increased. There's quite a bit of them. Again, they're all displaced from north and the middle of Gaza. The conditions in the hospital continue to worsen in terms of medical supplies. It's not sustainable. The water, the food, and the sanitation, and all that altogether has, if anything, got worse, slightly worse when compared to December.
And when you bring these supplies in and you're working in the hospital, can you give me a sense of some of the people you're meeting and that you're interacting with? What are you hearing from Gazans?
I think at this point, one I really need to highlight, Natasha, which I did not appreciate back in December. That in December, the bombardment and the shelling was more intense around the hospital. And at that time, there are more hospitals are functioning, including the Nasser Hospital, the second largest medical hospital after Shifa. This now has been dysfunctioned by when the Israeli entered and damaged some of the facilities there. So most of the thing now in the European Gaza hospital, so there's only one big, large functioning hospital now. So the load on that hospital is tremendous. There are field hospitals, the IMC, International Medical Corps, which got financed by USAID. They got a lot of money to expand. There's also the Emirati, the Qatari, the Kuwaiti. These are field hospitals. Together, all this put them together, the bed capacity is about 500 to 600 beds. So imagine there's just 600 beds to serve over 2.2 million people. So the hospitals are overwhelmed. And just 2 days ago, Natasha, just found out, which is heartbreaking, the only imaging available in European Gaza hospital, which is the major hospital now left functioning in Gaza, has one CT scanner. They don't have MRI. They don't have other scanners except one that serves the whole hospital. And this has been a problem with the CT, and now they have an issue of even treating patients. So since the last 48 hours, 72 hours, we're trying to secure a CT scanner, which if anyone can hear this message can help us with that. The second thing we're noticing more, the physicians over there are in despair. They've been working for 6 months, unpaid, exhausted, and a lot of them that were at Shifa Hospital, they moved to Nasser Hospital. Now, after what happened in Nasser, they're just tired, exhausted, they staying at home. And so more physicians are abandoning the hospitals that's local for many reasons, safety, money, and psychologically. The other thing are people more accepting of death. When I was there, we tried December, people are operating 24/7 now. When we got there, because of the lack of equipment, medical supplies, also post-op, we talked about it last time, there's no post-op care. The condition in the hospital is horrible. The infection is almost 100%. The death is much higher. People are less food, less water than before, and this is all augmenting the problem. So when someone comes in, they're just accepted in their mind that's like, okay, let him die or let her die. So there's quite a bit of fatigue, despair on their part. The other thing I want to really highlight that I didn't notice in December is now there's no governing body whatsoever in Gaza. And because of that, there's no law and order. And, and for many reasons, this is a huge problem. One, all this aid, as we've noticed in the last couple of weeks after President Joe Biden pressured the Israeli government and specifically the Prime Minister Netanyahu to allow more aid after what happened to the World Kitchen Center. More trucks are entering, but these trucks don't know where to go. They don't know how to distribute the food evenly. Northern Gaza is still affected the most, even after opening Erez and Ashdod port. So because of the lack of the government, these trucks cannot get to people as it should and distribute the aid as it needed. The other thing is there are some normalization, but it's abnormal. There's a rise of some people are taken, like mobs that have taken advantage of the situation. There's some commercialization in Rafah that the business people are hiking the prices to almost 500%. So these are just all together with the lack of the food, 1.1 million now, level 5, according to World Food Bank catastrophe. All that just worse than it was before.
Yeah, Dr. David Hasan, forgive me. I just want to jump in and please correct me if I'm wrong. But compared to our last conversation with you, you seem more exhausted. You seem more hopeless. Tell me how you're feeling about this. Is it hopeless in Gaza?
You have to have hope, Natasha, and you cannot despair. I'm nothing compared to what happened to people, but yes, just people, everybody fatigued, if you will, and especially the people inside. They're again, for the first time ever, Natasha, I saw 5-year-old kids that are wishing to die. That's never should ever come. Healthy kids, just seeing the despair of what's going on in Gaza, that shouldn't be ever in their mind. They should think about playing, having fun, watching cartoons, and eating candy. They never ever should think that they would rather die than stay alive.
Dr. David Hasan, doing brave work out there. If you go again, please get in touch with us. Thank you so much for your time today.
You're welcome.